Hello and namaste. I am the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. I am your host, humble as always, and this is the Almost Daily Zencast. The show is made possible by your generous support on patreon.com. Help me become a job creator. Alright, let's get started. Society, as we know it, is currently oppressed and kept divided by the use of ideological identity constructs that enslave us as individuals. I've spent a long time holding that back. It took me a long time to choose to try and phrase that in such a way that I mean to say, I know this to be true. It's not an article of faith. And I'm not, original in thinking this. But stick with me, because that wasn't it. There's more here. I want to posit to you the following as also a statement that is true. If you strip away society as we know it, and I don't mean to say that that's what I think we ought to do by any means. I mean, as a thought experiment, as a reality check, if you remove everything that is rendered by ego from our world, what is left? That which we kind of commonly call nature. Nature stands united in its organic oneness, inherently, by default, and without complicated laws or sentences describing what individual animals or individual members of nature should or should not do. Nature is busy nurturing on its own. I bring these two statements together because I think that in the gap between them lies one of the important self-recognitions, that is prerequisite to any spiritual seeking. We have to understand, first intellectually, and then emotionally, and then bodily, and then directly, to know that indeed that phenomena that we call society is a construct of, it's a system of systems that we all participate in and contribute to, that is oppressive and limiting and divisive by nature, by design. Pardon for the use of the term by nature. I don't mean to be punny or confusing. But by its nature, society, because it is addicted to operating through the oppression of the vast majority for the benefit of some self-selected minority that deems itself worthy of being in power. Power itself is an ideological construct. point as evidenced anywhere in nature the word power in the way in which we need it societally. Sure, there's the power of the sun, but the sun gives its radiance away. It does not profiteer in any way, shape, or form in its feeding us with its light. It's already an ancient wisdom saying, which many have quoted, or and to which many it is attributed, and it's one of those things that stands almost painfully, obviously, self-evidently, that we out there in reality that we ignore. It's a thing that we ignore. In nature does what it does for the sake of doing it and for the benefit of others. All life sacrifices itself to become food for other life. I think I went on a rant about that in a previous episode, so I won't go too deep there. You'll find it. The point is that the oneness is organic and inherent and innate. So we also are heir to this oneness because we are not separate from nature. That's one of the, I consider it a tertiary lie, a third level lie. It's up there very close to the original lies that we told ourselves of separation. That we are separate from nature. I guess you can lump it all in the first. It's just as important. I don't know why I feel it's like a third level down. I think it took us a while to do that. Like we separated ourselves from God before we separated ourselves from nature. And there was a big gap in between. But I digress. It's a lie. We are as indivisible from nature as a leaf is from the mother tree. From its tree, the tree that it springs forth from. You pluck a leaf of any shape, form, or kind, and it ceases to be alive. Unless you immediately, and with much help, transplant it. But I don't think, especially with broadleaf trees, you can't transplant a leaf. You have to get at one of the main axes of the plant. But I digress. I don't mean to go off on a plant nature thing. We are inheritors of nature's wisdom, but we have blocked it away from us by telling ourselves these lies and effectively blindfolding ourselves, or blindfolding this apparatus, this body device, this articulated puppet that we call mistakenly my body. Ourselves. We think of it as ourselves. But we also use language that divides ourselves from our body. To think of it deeply, my body is possessive. I own this body. We try not to think about it too much. It is my body. I strongly argue out into the world of society that we need to stop fighting over ideas, over money, over power, all of which is just symbolic, ideological constructs, and start healing ourselves. As individuals, as the ancient wisdom says, you cannot love another until you have learned how to fully love yourself. Not ego love, not self-aggrandizing, supremacy. That's not love. That's self-supremacy. And that is indeed the very affliction that we suffer. Each and every one of us was conditioned with a self-supremacy script to compete in a consumerist, corporate, profiteering world. And one of the ways that we can begin that healing is by realizing that nature has existed ostensibly for infinity without the benefit of our crazy ideologies. And the total sum of our human ideologies is but a paltry few 100,000 years old, at best. Thus, it's easy to, once we open ourselves to reality as it actually is, it's easy to distinguish that bullshit from, let's not use the word truth, but from what actually is. I think one culture puts it, that which truly is. Whatever that is. That phenomenon is labeled reality or the universe, and we can debate our interpretations of it or commune with it directly. The calling, it's not my calling in as much as that I'm not the one responsible for it. Mother Nature herself is begging us as a species to help ourselves end our own suffering and our own torture and our own delusion, our own madness, to cure our own illness with all the natural and organic and correct and real and effective healing methodologies that are true to the universe beyond that which the current logic allows. Reality is going to win in the long run. If we think about it, if there's going to be a clash between that which is real and that which is purely just our imaginations, I think in the long term, in the long run, reality wins. The cosmos wins. The living, breathing cosmos will outlast our addiction to this self-destructive experiment. In some theories, for those of you familiar, this was called the Mars experiment. I'm not sure how much crossover there is between that particular term and the men is from Mars, women are from Venus theory. But there are many versions of a thesis that state that we are the product of the commingling of various local neighborhood species in order to achieve a more advanced state of being, but that in some long time ago, era, we were clear-sighted enough and wise enough to see that which is the truth, and that which, and we were approaching and enjoying the fruits of being that highly advanced and that highly enlightened. But we seduced ourselves, some portion of our population seduced ourselves into saying, how much fun would it be to let ego really just reign supreme here in this realm, on this planet, and to separate ourselves, divide ourselves in a tangible sense from the reality that you might call divine source in a more intense way than we already had as part of the dream of separation that led to the physical realm and the existence of material life. That itself was its own rebellion of illusion into indulgence of separation, right? But now we're talking about evolutionary history here on Earth. And we apparently struggled and maybe even fought a war about this experiment. Should we go full ego? And many of us said, no, never go full ego. We've already explored that enough and learned enough lessons. let us continue to advance upwards in the spiral of ascension and learn the deeper magic and the more powerful healing, because there are other members of life in other segments of this infinite fractal that need our help in advancing beyond kinder care of learn how to share. And some of us here, some of us humans, I say us, even though sometimes I speak like I'm not from here, it's very complicated. There's multiple timelines and multiple frames of reference of reality. I come from a slightly different one than yours, but let's not get lost down that rabbit hole. They all collapse back in together anyways. And the more we, as individual creators of our experience in our universe, the more we heal ourselves and begin to more, healthfully, more transcendentally heal and liberate ourselves from mind, from ego mind. And mind you, I've said before, and I'll say it again, worth repeating, we're not supposed to kill ego. We say ego death and all that, but we're not supposed to kill ourselves. We're supposed to heal ourselves. It's that simple. That in doing that internally, we will manifest the end of killing ourselves and each other externally. The end to war is possible. The idea that war is unavoidable and a justifiable evil to end other people's acts of evil, that is an elaborate lie. That is why we're having the Russia-roos, to perpetuate that lie. In Russia, America's the bad guys. To some people, and other people, they're divided as fuck. In Russia, to some people, Putin is the bad guy. In the United States, to a lot of people, Russia's the bad guy. But in the United States, to a lot of people, Trump is the bad guy. Guess what? They are mere puppets in servitude to the metaconsciousness that is playing out this dance between light and dark. Let us hear from someone from ancient yieldy times of yore, not from the golden era I'm talking about, from someone who in a, what for him was a post-modern context, who you may have heard of, other side of the world, a culture you may or may not feel comfortable indulging into the reception of their spirituality, but Rumi. He was a mystic from the world of early Islam, and he speaks volumes that are so powerful and meaningful today, and that are, if nothing else, should not be forgotten. If you've never encountered Rumi before, he's just a passionate voice, and that cuts through the bullshit in a way that applies today just as sharply as it applied back then. Where to start? Probably my all-time favorite Rumi quote: "You are looking for God. That is the problem. The God which is in you is the one looking." Another one, and I'll share these on, actually I should just do these, share this line right now. Sharing to my Facebook page, to my Tumblr, to my Twitter, why not? Boom. I can't take credit for the image, but I did create the layout of the text and the pairing of the text with the image. The images belong to the original creators whose names have long been lost track of because I have no staff. I have no one facilitating this project. But I present and share this to the world with much passion. Another Rumi quote that I want to just let you savor and chew on and let it help show you where the solution lies inside of you and inside of all of us. Rumi said, I am another you, you are another me. Back in the 70s of the 1200s, 1270 something, he lived from, he was born the 30th of September, 1207, and apparently died the 17th of December, 1273. It's 2017, so within the era of, that he, like, an equivalency era that he would have lived through. And it's like he was born, imagine that he could have been born in 2007, and these words would still be powerful and pertinent right now if he were saying them. Although he would be what, like 4? Alright, I digress. Let this Rumi wisdom sink into yourself and rattle that cage that you call your mind. I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and found only God. And I think I'll wrap it up with this. To love is to be God. Never will a lover's chest feel any sorrow. Never will a lover's robe be touched by mortals. Never will a lover's body be found buried in the earth. To love is to be God. His poetry describes something intangible and inexplicable in language, and yet somehow manages to capture a close indicator of what that is. And I find it important now, in this era that we are living through, to remind the world that any argument for violence in the name of God is nonsense, because God is the being us. There's only so many ways you can say it. And I don't want to be accused of claiming to be God. I'm not. I'm just another person just like you. I'm not special. I'm not enlightened. I don't want to... I do want to start a church because that would be cool and you'd make a nice living. But if I started a church, I'd be accused of being a cult or a communist compound. Because my church would be relaxed and groovy and all about growing food for each other and healing each other and chilling out and enjoying beautiful sacred art. And that's about it, because that's all of the truest things that nature wants us to participate in. And the vast majority of the things that we engage in this postmodern lifestyle of lifestyle choices, they're crazy. They're like symptoms of the insanity that we're living, and that waste of time. And while sometimes very pleasant, trust me, I know I like video games. If I ever scrape up enough disposable income in the next quarter, I'm going to get myself as beefy of a computer as I can, because every once in a while I want to play some video games. I get it. But morality is another construct, so I don't want ever to be accused of trying to be moralistic in what I talk about or what I'm sharing. What I'm suggesting to you all is that there's a higher calling that we should neglect less Because the more we engage with it, the more we will transcend and therefore heal away the problems that we are freaked out about. Fighting over the problems won't ever solve them. Killing each other over the problems won't ever solve them. So maybe meditating as entree to healing the problem, as vehicle towards healing the problem might. I'm going to bid a fond farewell to you. Thank you for listening. I'm kind of proud that I'm managing to make the episodes on occasion a wee bit shorter than the full 45 minutes. So, thanks. Keep coming back. At some point during this season, I'm going to start being able to feature guest hosts on the phone, co-hosts, collaborators, call-in questions, etc. Skype and phone line in the not too distant future. May peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart, my friends.